Hey, guess what? It's time for a little bit of a history lesson. So sit down, relax, because it's gonna get bumpy, okay? So check this out. We all have opinions, right? But we must demand respect in the truth. So let's get it. So I'm sure that you heard of this Jim Crow thing, right? It's all over the news. Everybody's yakking about it, right? So I knew what that was, but I didn't really know the extent of what this Jim Crow was. So here we are with this history lesson about to get schooled, okay? So I dug in deep, right? I did a lot of research and I figured out a lot of things, okay? So don't get all rowdy on me in the comments just because I mentioned Jim Crow, okay? I'm gonna put you right in your place if you're gonna come at me that way, because I'm bringing the truth, okay? And this is probably stuff that you don't even know, because you know what? I really didn't even know some of it. So let's get into it. The Jim Crow idea, it really didn't start in the South, my friend. Hold on, hear me out. Check it. On October 12th, 1838, a Massachusetts newspaper company called the Salem Gazette first referenced Jim Crow. Now, they were talking about the Eastern Railroad Company that laid about 13 and a half miles of track from Boston to Salem, Massachusetts. And in their newspaper article, the words Jim Crow appeared in the text about this company. Now let's get into this company, what the hell it's all about. And why was it even mentioned this way? Okay, so at that time, there was about 8 passenger railway cars running in Massachusetts, okay? And only three, which is still too many, had decided to choose they chose the custom of the separate cars. So out of 8, 3 chose to do the separation thing, right? Let's get into it more. Okay, so in Boston during that time, there was only about, we'll just say roughly, approximately, I would say the number of 8,549 or 8,449, something like that. But basically 1% of the population of Massachusetts at the time were colored, okay? So obviously there weren't a whole lot of colored people riding the trains. So that's why there weren't so many of the 8 that were doing the separation thing. Only 3, okay? So let's keep going. Oh yeah, that 1% thing, that was based off facts from the 1840 census in Massachusetts. Fact check me all day long, sucker. Okay, so 2 of those 3 lines, their turf was running the train from North and South Boston, okay? And so in those areas of North and South Boston, which, by the way, my whole family's from South Boston, just a little FYI. Nonetheless, in those sections, the territory, whatever, turf, whatever you call it, there were groups that were anti-slavery, right? So then you had blacks that were anti-slavery, then you had the whites that were anti-slavery. They're all mixed up in that area, right? But you already had the divide of the North and the South. So you get it, the North and the South. There was already a divide because you had 2 trains running, one for the North and one for the South, which it really should have been just like one train running straight from North to South. But, you know, I digress and we keep going. Okay, so I think the word is abolitionists. They were part of this group in Massachusetts. I think it was just basically called the Anti-Slavery Group. Oh, my bad. It was the Anti-Slavery Society. So when you have these Anti-Slavery Society members riding in the trains of the separate cars, right? Those 3 I was talking about, right? Obviously, there was going to be some issues. There was going to be some problems. Things were going to get rowdy. So it was the point where the conductor said, or the supervisor, the CEO of the company, whatever, decided that it has to be separate because they wanted to keep the peace. Okay, so they weren't obviously going to put the black people, colored people, whatever you want to call it, in these carts with the anti-slavery people. Okay, because obviously they'd be getting rowdy to be like, why are we getting separated? Why are you still treating them like slaves? Da 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 da, right? Even though they were free members of society in Massachusetts, but only that 1%, okay? So there was going to be some big confrontations right then and there, okay? So that was their design, that was their idea of keeping things separate. So in the words of the conductor, which I didn't get his name, right? But he said that this was not going to happen in white cars only, nor the dirt cars. The dirt cars, what the hell? Those are those three separate passenger cars, train cars that I'm being referred to, okay? So the conductor, in his own words, had said this, right? And so that word, the words dirt car, was actually in print as well in this newspaper article by the Salem Gazette, okay? So right then and there, we now have two references to this Jim Crow separation segregation, right? One was called the Jim Crow car, and the other one was the dirt car, all referring to the separate passenger cars to accommodate the colored people. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper. During that time in Boston, churches already had their separate pews for the blacks and the whites, as well as theaters. There was already segregation happening before the Civil War. So not only did we have that separation, segregation happening, but we had these anti-slavery groups, societies, that were fighting this, okay? And I'm going to give you a couple examples of some very famous people that were dealing with this on the anti-slavery side. One, Frederick Douglass. Yes, Frederick Douglass was an anti-slavery person, right? And so there was an incident where he was riding one of the passenger cars and he refused to move, like Rosa Parks, right? Didn't want to get off her seat. Same with Frederick Douglass. He didn't want to get off his seat neither. So forcibly, because the train company was trying to keep the peace, removed him. And it was a big fight, and he was holding the seat and all that, and they ended up ripping him up with the seat, according to his memoirs, okay? So, he really wasn't liking that idea. And I wouldn't either. Now, because he refused to move his seat from in which he was sitting on, in whatever, the conductor decided to skip his train stop, which was in Lynn, Massachusetts. And if you're from Massachusetts, it's called Lynn, the city of sin, right? Because it's just horrible over there. But nonetheless, they bypassed his stop, okay, for a little bit of retribution, retaliation, right? But all the white residents of Lynn who had to stop at that stop obviously weren't going to stop because the train was going to go right by. So everybody pitched a fit. And so to the chagrin of the conductor, he had to renege on his decision. And so therefore, giving Frederick Douglass that small victory, right? So now let's get into the second person who challenged this whole idea, right? And his name was David Ruggles. Okay, so if you're in Boston, you know that there's a train stop called Ruggles, right? Goes right to New Bedford because that's where he was at. Okay, and so same situation, same scenario. But this time, it's a little different. David Ruggles was a black man who was against anti-slavery. But guess what? He was riding in the whites-only cart. And that was a big no-no. So they tried to remove him as well. Okay? And so they actually, assaulted him. They tore his clothes, da-da-da-da-da. So what he did was, instead of fighting back, he kind of really fought back, but legally, okay? So he took it to court, tried to press charges, all this other stuff, right? And so the judge went in favor of the train company, saying that the train company had its own responsibility to enforce its own rules, however deemed necessary. Now that's kind of messed up, but that's what happened. So let's keep going. So with that little court case of Ruggles versus the railway company, that little court case right there with Ruggles versus the railway company, that started the actual segregation of individual rights versus the rights of the corporation. Interesting, isn't it? Let's keep going. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit further here. So the people that were living in the North, they were the Unionists. And the people in the South were the Confederates. Now let's break this down even further. The people in the North that were the Union were Republicans. And the people in the South, the Confederates, they were the Democrats. How do I know this? I'm going to tell you. In 1854, a Democratic senator by the name of, let me just check, Stephen A. Douglas created legislation that created territories for Kansas and Nebraska. Now, at that time, the House was democratically run. And you had a Democratic president, Franklin Pierce. All Democrats running the whole show. So when Democratic presidential leader Franklin Pierce signed this new legislation into law, it repealed the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Which now this allowed the spread of slavery to the Western territories, okay? Just keep it like that. So now when that law hit the books, there was a group of anti-slavery society members that obviously did not like this repeal, this new legislation. And so what they did was they all got together and they formed what is called the Republican Party. So now we're going to go to November 6th, 1860. That's when Honest Abe was elected president, who, by the way, was a Republican. Okay? So at that time, before he became into office, because he actually didn't get into office until March 7th or something, 1861, 7 states had seceded from the country. So some of the southern states withdrew their basically citizenship of the United States, okay, the Union, right? And so those southern states formed the Confederacy. So now you have the Union and the Confederacy, the North versus the South. Okay. So now 1861 pops up. Lincoln's running the show. Okay. So now we have the Civil War. Let me tell you who fired the first shot. The Confederate forces, the Democrats. So, the reason why I did this this is because I was watching the news and then I seen our president up there giving the guilt trip about this Jim Crow shit. Wait, okay, I'm just saying that because I understand the separation, segregation is wrong, but the narcissistic abuse of venom that spit out his mouth to make you feel guilty while he was in South Carolina, propping you up to be sympathetic and using that kind of a tactic to win the votes of those people in South Carolina. Shame on you. Shame on you. And if you maybe did not know who Frederick Douglass was or David Ruggles, Mr. President, maybe you should have looked into those people before you started really running your mouth about trying to guilt us into this fear tactic of separation, segregation, and it's all the Southern people's faults. Well, are they not Southern Democrats? Were they for slavery? Were they not the ones that started the Civil War by actually initiating the first act of violence? And you are a Democratic president, correct? Yes, you are. You can't come at us like that now. Especially not with me being on the scene. No way. I'm going to put you in your place because you're wrong for doing that. And you're misinforming people about the truth about what really is to be and what side is for really what. Democrats are for slavery. Look at you with your immigration. Busting those damn border doors wide open. So then you could get them, what, in your pocket to vote for you? You're going to give them a job picking oranges? So now are we not still dealing with some kind of form of slavery? Is that not your historical events taking place in present day? I think so. Little disgusted.
Holy Jesus.
Since you don't want to tell the American people the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help your damn job.
What the fuck is that?
I'll do it for you. So, my friends, that has been your history moment. I hope you enjoyed that, right? A little bit of knowledge, a little bit of facts, always the truth. Because you can't run from the truth because the truth is based in fact. And if you're going to misinform people and mislead people and misrepresent your own party in disguise with this guilt trip, narcissistic shit, well, that's my opinion. Because what else are you capable of manipulating people's emotions, and fear tactics, and denying the truth? Can't have that no more. That game is over. Peace and pray, my friends. Have yourself a great day.